Hello, my name is Jeffrey Watson.
And I'm Ethan Edwards.
And this is the Ridge Podcast.
So, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ridge Podcast. Today we have a little bit of a different episode. Yeah. It's not an interview, and it's not even really, it's kind of a book review, but not really. It's more of a study on the $2 bill.
Yeah, so previously we had a book talk. This is a topic talk. It's similar but different.
And we are discussing a book, but it's more of the broader topic discussion.
Yeah, the book talks about the topic that we're talking about.
And there's also a documentary that goes along with the book.
Yeah.
But like I said before, it all centers around a very interesting and mostly unknown topic, the $2 bill.
It's niche, really. Yeah.
It's very niche. A lot of people don't even know we have a $2 bill.
Yeah.
Which could say something about civics lessons in the United States. But it's one of the most unique pieces of currency there is. People think it is really rare. It's actually not, and we'll get more into that when we talk about the book. But yeah, I mean, we're just really, Ethan, you've had an interest in the $2 bill recently. Can you talk about how you got into it?
Yeah, so one of my teachers, she sells snacks to fundraise for a club that we have at school, and one day a kid came in with a $2 bill, and my teacher was like, "Really, you want to buy snacks with a $2 bill? They're kind of rare. They don't make them anymore." And I thought that was interesting. I've always thought that was a myth, but I wasn't really sure. So I decided to look it up, and it was a myth. The last time they had printed $2 bills was in 2017. So, no?
2017?
I thought so.
I thought the last printing was 2013.
Okay, anyways, sometime between 2013, 2017, not super important, but it's been recent, right?
Very recent, yes.
It's not this, it was printed 40 years ago, and you have to be lucky to find one. They're pretty common. So as I was researching about the $2 bill, just reading the Wikipedia page, I stumbled across this website. It's called the $2 Bill Documentary. I'll link to that in the show notes. And there's this person, John Bennardo. He wrote a book, and he made a documentary on the $2 bill. And I thought, wow, like, it must be really interesting if you want to write a book and film a documentary about it. And while I was reading about it, I saw it took over 2 years to film the documentary. And I was like, that's a big commitment for something that really as niche as a $2 bill. And you just imagine how much money went into filming. And
the documentary is very well made. I mean, it's won a lot of awards.
Yeah.
It's very enjoyable. And a lot of people wouldn't be interested in watching it, but I mean, I wholeheartedly recommend it because it's neat. Yeah. And it's fun, too. They make the documentary very lighthearted.
It's entertaining. And so I saw the book and the documentary, so I went to order it. And I was kind of taken aback when I went to check out. The final total for the purchase was $22.22.
Yeah. I
thought that was really interesting, just because the actual product itself was like $16, $17, but then the shipping was what made it $22.22. And like, yeah, shipping probably didn't cost that much, but I thought it was a neat touch, and I didn't mind paying that much more because it was cool. It was cool. Yeah, so something important to note, you don't actually have to buy the movie off the website in order to watch it. It's available for free on YouTube. It's the $2 bill movie, or $2 bill documentary.
Yeah, because that's where I watched it on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. And that's
so anybody can watch it, and you should watch it. So it's a very unique part of American culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ethan, he's gotten into it kind of obsessively the past few weeks. But I've been around $2 bills forever because my family's given them to me. Mm-hmm. So I've always kind of known what they were.
Yeah, so, I knew what they were. You didn't have that big of an interest in them.
Yeah. So, so he gave me the book, and I read it and watched the documentary, and it is very interesting. So I thought we should talk about it. So let's go right into the book. Yeah. The book is called The $2 Bills: America's Forgotten Currency.
Yeah.
The History, Hijinks, and Significance of America's Most Unique
Currency.
Yeah, currency.
Yeah.
By John Bennardo.
Yeah, John Bennardo, a person we mentioned earlier.
Denomination. Okay, so the book talks about myths.
Yeah.
Of the $2 bill.
Yeah, there are a lot of myths associated with the $2 bill. That's bad luck, or that's good luck, or it has certain connotations, and the book wants to dispel some of that.
Yeah, and really the first myth they're talking about is that they're rare.
Yeah.
They're really not rare at all. They only take up 1% of all currency in circulation. And that might sound very small amount, but that's 1.2
yeah.
billion $2 bills in active circulation.
In the first few pages on the book, it has a graph of frequency of each bill. And although the $2 bill is the smallest one, it's not that much rarer than the $50 bill or even the $10 bill.
Really, the $10 bill, see, there's only 2.2 billion $10 bills in circulation right now. There's 1.2 billion $2 bills. So really, that's not that big of a difference.
I mean, of course, like a billion, like
a billion, but in the grand scheme of things,
but you have to keep in mind that although they're technically in circulation, a lot of them are kept away in drawers or
because there is that, and then that idea that they are aware that they're worth more.
So they're not really circulated.
Yeah, so people keep them. And they're very nice. And you look at a $2 bill, most of the time when you see them, they're not dirty or filthy because they're not circulated that much. People don't want to spend them. But that's a major misconception that, they are rare. And from that comes another misconception that they're worth more than $2. Now,
we would all like to believe that, but
that would be...
It's not true.
No, and if there's mistakes on them, they can be worth more than $2. But
or even if they have like a certain serial number.
For collecting. But they're worth $2.
Yeah.
So they encourage people to get out and spend them.
Yeah. And it talks about when they were originally being reprinted for the first time, they had people call the Federal Reserve and say, hey, are these real? Like, are they being reprinted? And they told everyone, like, yeah, they're being reprinted, so please go out and spend them. But the response that they got was, oh, no way, I'm going to go get a bunch of $2 bills, put them in my drawer, and then come back in 20 years and they're going to be worth a lot. And that wasn't the point of printing them again.
No, and they printed them again in 1976. It was Thomas Jefferson's birthday in April when they reprinted them, and that was to celebrate the bicentennial, birthday of the United States. So to celebrate, so they thought they discontinued it. Was it in '64?
I'm not sure.
It was in the mid-'60s. Yeah, I know they discontinued it.
They started reprinting it just a few short years
later, because they had the idea, we're having this Independence Day celebration. What are we going to do? And one of the ideas for the Federal Reserve celebration was to bring back the $2 bill because it was beloved, and they did. And part of the reason why people think it's worth more than it is because of that. They thought it was some kind of
rarity,
rare, special reprint to celebrate the bicentennial.
To some extent it is, but it doesn't make it more valuable.
No. And another reason why they think it's more valuable is because of the painting on the back of the $2 bill. When they did the 76 re-release, they had, I'm blanking on the name here. I know the name, but Independence Hall. And it's a beautiful work of art. It's very pretty. So people look at it and they think,
over 150 people in the photo, and a fun fact about the photo is that they had to move people around to fit them all on the back of the $2 bill.
And some people were cut out. Was it 5 individuals?
I think originally yes, but this part in the documentary wasn't super clear. I think they were able to rework them in different positions on the photo.
Because I know originally they took out George Wythe. One of the guys cut out.
Something I thought was funny. He was particularly notable because we have George with high school.
Locally.
Yeah. Something that was funny, the dude in the documentary pronounced it as George Wythe. I thought that was interesting. Is it really pronounced Wythe? Or is he just... Does John Bennardo just not know how to pronounce the name?
Well, a lot of times, where was George Wythe originally from?
I'm assuming somewhere in Virginia because we have George with high school just probably 20 miles away, right?
Carroll County High School, but he was from Maryland.
Yeah, that's true.
So, people around here, they speak in certain ways. Like freeze. People say it's fries.
Fries.
So, I guess it can be pronounced.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I just thought that was interesting because that's not how we pronounce it around here. And for all I know, that could be the correct way to pronounce his name. It's just not how we pronounce the name around here.
Yeah. It's not worth more than $2. So if somebody, it was really interesting. People try to sell $2 bills on eBay for
hundreds of dollars.
Hundreds of dollars, and that's a scam.
Yeah.
Unless they don't know.
Yeah.
But
and there are some exceptions where they are more valuable.
Well, yeah.
So the documentary in the book talks about a radar, a bill. So it's if you read it from right to left or left to right, the bill's exactly the same. So you have, 8 you have 8 numbers on.
Yeah, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or
Well,
even like.
Well, that was a series.
Yeah, that was a series of numbers. Yeah, but what was it?
I think the one mixing was like 002, 0200.
Yeah.
And they're rare and they only happen once in like a million prints or whatever. And those are variable. Or if you have a star on your bill, because that means the bill was reprinted because the original one had an error, then it's variable. Or if the faces are backwards, so the face of the bill has one orientation, and then the back of the bill has another orientation next way. So misprints are pretty variable.
And for the listener, as we're talking to you, we do have a bunch of $2 bills out here for inspiration.
Yeah, I have. So I actually have an interesting story about my $2 bills. So I talked about my teacher who was selling snacks earlier. She took this $2 bill that the student paid with and put it on her desk, and I was like, wow, this is pretty unique. And she said that was the second $2 bill that she's ever had anyone pay snacks for with. So I was like, hey, can I buy the $2 bill off you? And she said, sure. So I handed her 2 ones, and she gave me a $2 bill, and I kept it. I was happy because at this time I was still under the misconception that it was a rare bill, and I wasn't necessarily going to sell it for more, but I wanted to have it.
Yeah.
So just a few days later, one of my friends in my math class was trying to buy food from another student. So he pulls out a $2 bill and says, hey, can I pay with this? And my friend who's selling the food is like, no, that's fake. And I just laughed because, it's not fake, but it's a common misconception, and it wasn't a big deal. I just thought it was funny. But I looked over to my friend and said, hey, I'll buy that $2 bill off you, and you can have these ones so you can buy food. And he's like, sure. And we did the exchange, and I got 2 $2 bills within the span of, 5 days. I just thought that was pretty cool.
And you can go to the bank, too.
And get them.
And get them and just exchange them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are very accessible.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so... Like with other denominations of currency, they print them every year, like the 1s and 10s and 20s. Yeah. With the $2 bill, they don't. They print them on a need basis. They always had the prints available, but it's not on a set date like other bills.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, they are. They're not as widespread as the other bills, but they are out there. Another thing is another myth. People think that there's no room in the cash register for $2 bills. I thought that was very interesting.
And I mean, that kind of makes sense because if you look at most cash registers, they have a 1 slot, a 5 slot, a 10 slot, and a 20 and big bill slot.
Yeah.
But older cash registers had a 1, 2, 5, 10, and 20 and big bill slot.
Yeah.
So it's only because that these cash registers are being made differently is that the $2 bills don't fit in the registers anymore. So I've seen a lot of people, they put, and this is mentioned in the documentary, they put $2 bills and $1 bills in the same slot.
Yeah.
But that
at the bottom, right? $2 bills at the bottom.
Yeah, but that can lead to people shortchanging themselves. And the documentary talked about this too. People would just flip through the ones, count them and not look at them, and accidentally give people $2 bills instead of ones. So people started tearing the corner off the bills so they would notice when they came across them when they were handing change back to people. And tearing the corner off the bill is also associated with ridding the bill of a curse. Quote unquote, right? A curse. Some people believe the bills were cursed, and by kissing it or tearing the corner off, you could rid the bill of the curse, which is very interesting. And there were some religious connotations with that we won't get into, but
in the documentary, they do talk about the number 2 a lot.
Yeah.
Its significance with the supernatural.
Yeah.
And with
or even just the natural too.
The natural too. Yeah, the natural world. I mean,
it talks about how we have 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears. There's just this conformity about the number 2. It's natural.
Yeah.
It feels safe. Maybe.
And the author John Bennardo, he does have an obsession with the number 2 also. So that has to play in with the obsession with the $2 bill.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the cash register was really neat. And see, sometimes they even put it in the coin slot too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
And another myth that goes right along with it is that vending machines won't take them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they won't because they're not calibrated too.
Yeah.
They say just a flip of the switch, and it's just a picture. The audience can't see this, of course, but there's a switch on the back of the vending machine that can make it start taking twos.
Yeah, and I wonder, do the vending machines at our high school accept $2 bills?
We might have to figure that out.
We should make a post about that sometime. On our Instagram, folks, you can follow the UH Podcast Insta. One day we'll try a $2 bill at the high school and report the results.
And please, I mean, when you're following us on Instagram or leaving a comment. Tell us your $2 bill stories.
Yeah, don't forget to like too. Share the podcast. Everything you can do helps us.
And that gets into some of the, I think, a really cool story in the book. And later in the episode, we'll get into more like the testimonials of people that talked about, their interactions with $2 bills. Because there's some really touching and emotional stories in the back that you wouldn't really associate, but it is. And one of the first instances of this is in the book is called "You're Under Arrest."
Yeah,
and it's a time police were called when a $2 bill was spent. I forget where he was at.
Was it Taco Bell?
No, this wasn't Taco Bell. I think it was like a Radio Shack or something.
There were multiple instances.
Yeah,
of this.
multiple. But the guy, Best Buy's car stereo installation department, and he bought a stereo and he tried to pay them with a few $2 bills.
Yeah,
because he had a bunch of them, and they thought it was fake, so they called the police. And he was actually arrested and taken to jail until they could call the Secret Service to confirm that the United States actually had a $2 bill.
Yeah, could you imagine just like going to jail because you paid was illegal tender?
Yeah.
And the Secret Service had to come vouch for you? As annoying as that would be, it's a pretty cool story, and I wouldn't mind if it happened to me.
Well, I mean, he knew he was going to get out. So it'd be kind of funny, but...
Yeah. Well, he even said, like, during the documentary, that when the cops came to get him, he said, I guess you're here for me, and he put his hands behind his back. He knew he was going to jail.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything he could do about it.
And then, I'm not really well-versed in this story, but you seem to know more about the Taco Bell story.
Yeah.
Because I didn't read I read it, but they had the transcripts of the actual argument between the manager and the server.
Yeah.
At a Taco Bell, if you can go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so this person, he was getting off from work, he decided he was hungry. He wanted to go to Taco Bell and pay for a burrito. I think it was a 99-cent burrito. Wasn't a big deal. So he looks in his wallet. He finds two bills, a $2 bill and a $50 bill. So he goes up, orders a burrito, goes to pay, and he says, "Hey, I have a $2 bill. Here you go."
Yeah.
And the person working the cash register just looks at him, dumbfounded, and says, "I can't accept that.
Yeah.
That's not real." And the person in our story is like, "What do you mean it's not real? It's a $2 bill. Of course it's real." So the person goes and gets his manager and says, "Yeah, we can't accept that. That's not real. It's a fake bill. It's counterfeit. Like, we just can't accept that." This person says, "Okay, I have a $50 bill. You can take it." And the manager says, "No, we don't want to open the safe because we don't have enough change to give you." So the manager gets upset, calls the mall security. Mall security comes, talks to the guy, and asks what the problem is. And the manager shows the mall security the $2 bill, and mall security says, "Yeah, that's real money. $2 bills exist, and people use them to pay for things all the time." So the manager goes back, apologizes, and agrees to give him the burrito for free for his trouble. Yeah. I just thought that was an interesting story. And it makes me wonder if I went to Burger King and tried to pay for something with $2 bills, would they accept it?
And me and Ethan have talked about doing this around town, just kind of see what happens, like a little experiment, see if people know what they are. Yeah. Because I think on the website too, there's all these stories of people, their $2 bills, how they figured out about them, their interactions with them, and it's memorable. Yeah. People remember when they get $2 bills.
Yeah, and talking about memorability. So in college football teams like Clemson, they use $2 bills as a hallmark.
Yeah.
They will stamp Clemson paws on the $2 bills and go around the city where their team is playing and pay for things with the $2 bills.
Show the impact of the Clemson football team on that city. Because it started in Atlanta, and I think was it Georgia Tech? They had a big game in Atlanta every year, and they stopped doing it.
I think so. Yeah.
And that was a lot of money that brought in that Clemson made off of that game. So they were upset by it. So they had a marketing strategy to show the last game, the impact that Clemson football game had on the economy in Atlanta. Yeah. And they put on the $2 bill the Clemson Tiger, the stamps of the Tiger paw. Yeah. And they said it was all around the city. So people got to people really got to see the impact of that marketing strategy.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful execution of.
Because the Georgia Tech head coach said it was probably one of the best he's ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of worried about the legality of that too.
Yeah, it talks about that later in the episode. It talks about defacing money.
Yeah, you can't cut it.
Yeah, well you can tear it.
You can
tear it, but you can't damage the money with the intent to devalue it.
Yeah.
If you don't have the intent to devalue it, well,
or to increase the value.
Increase the value.
And you can't make it. It has to be very visible that it is.
Yeah.
United States.
You can't try to change the denomination and anything to invalidate its worth.
And you can stamp it.
Yeah.
But you can't
You can't
advertise
yeah.
on that's highly illegal.
Yeah, so we couldn't put the Ridge podcast on one of these bills and give them out.
But I was wondering, the Clemson paw, the tiger logo, is that
considered advertising?
Considered advertising? I was wondering about the legality of that.
I guess if it's not by Clemson officials, it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
So we could apply this to our situation. If we decided that we wanted to give out stamps to people that we know and say, hey, can you stamp $2 bills for us? We wouldn't be doing it. We wouldn't be advertising. But people
I think that's called conspiracy.
Yeah, maybe that's not the best idea.
But yeah, I mean, and we'll get into that later in the episode because there's a whole section on stamping and stampers and how it's a whole big community stamping bills.
And I have some experience that I would like to talk about later with stamping bills.
But we're going to section 2 of the book now, and it's the history of the $2 bill.
Yeah, so this is
pretty interesting right here. I mean, it really started in 1690 in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. For those of you students of history out there, that was very early in American history. It wasn't even it was America, but it was continental America.
Yep.
So the Massachusetts Bay Colony created the first $2 bill to fund its military expeditions. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until 1776 when the first $2 bill appeared. It was pressed to finance the need of the ongoing Revolutionary War.
Yep.
The Continental Congress in 1775 approved the creation of federally issued paper currency. And I thought this was pretty cool. On June 25th, 1776, just 9 days before independent America was born, the $2 denomination was created by the U.S. Congress.
Yeah.
It wasn't even America yet when we had our first
It's pretty cool.
$2 denomination, and these were called the Continentals. They printed 49,000 $2 bills.
And that's a lot.
Yeah, for that time.
Yeah.
They ended up being overproduced, which led to inflation.
Yeah.
But I thought the Continentals was a pretty unique.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's one of the first
before America
currencies.
even really started.
Yeah. But so they had some prints and they reprinted them, and but the Continentals were not a good system.
Yeah. And then it talks about later when the Union and the Confederacy were at war. Banks could issue their own. This might have been shortly after. The banks could issue their own denominations and bills. It briefly flashed us in a documentary, but it didn't ever talk about this. There was a 6 3/4 bill.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that, but there was a bill that had a 6 and a 3 divided by 4 on it. I just thought that was interesting.
You could get into currency all day long because
Yeah.
I think about how many. Cause we're looking at 2 images right here. State of Florida, $2.
Yeah.
The Parish of Franklin,
Yeah.
$2. See, all these different localities or companies made their own currencies, which is banks made their own currency, which is really weird. I don't think it was really until the Civil War that the United States I forget the acts it was called. I'm blanking. It was a series of 3 acts passed by the United States Congress that really solidified the United States currency.
Well, and that's
one unitary.
That's when they started putting the United States dollar on it too. So, brief note to the listener: if you look at a recently printed $2 bill, on the top, on the side where it has Jefferson on it, it will say Federal Reserve note. If you find an older bill, there's a chance that it might say United States note. Those are pretty special. I don't know if they're necessarily worth more, but there was a law that was passed or an act.
The Federal Reserve Act.
Yeah, and they had to keep a certain amount of United States notes in circulation. I think the number is 50,000.
But yeah, so really in 1793, America's monetary system was based entirely on coin, per Article 1 of the Constitution, which I thought was really interesting. I never really knew that, and I love history, so that was new to me. But by the early 1800s, the amount of coins that needed to be produced was not sufficient to the population and the need for it. So they started producing each states and localities, like we said before. But yeah, so this practice continued for the next 60 years, as we said. Over 8,000 different entities were issuing their own currencies in the United States. So that's shocking.
I think that's what I was referring to before. I think I got my dates wrong. I don't think it was around the Civil War. I think it was before, like you said.
Yeah. But they said, like the Continentals, the large variety ultimately led to their demise.
Yeah.
They said at this time, 10 to 15% of currency issued banknotes were the $2 denomination.
So, something that it mentions too in the documentary, it has a great visual to demonstrate this. As you traveled farther and farther away from the bank that issued the note, it would depreciate in value.
So people wouldn't accept it if they didn't recognize
and then
where it was coming
if
from.
the bank failed too,
it was worthless.
Yeah, which it's kind of crazy to think about now. Like, imagine if your bank down the road just collapsed. Well, thanks to the FDIC,
Of course,
up to $250,000 is covered.
Insured,
but imagine if it wasn't. No one would use banks.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would be, there would be a Skyline currency, and there would be
there'd be a Skyline currency,
Wells Fargo currency. I mean, all those different banks. So, but yeah, and another interesting fact that says here, by estimate, there were nearly 1,000 unique $2 notes created.
Yeah.
So different, not just different issues, but different actual different currencies. But yeah, so the onset of the Civil War facilitated yet another new system of currency. Both sides needed to finance the high cost of war, so the $2 bills was one of those things that were printed, and it was really big in the Confederacy. But of course, they lost the war, so that wasn't really. They couldn't use that afterwards.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was interesting, especially, the Union, they had both sides of the currency printed. The Confederacy, they were in a different financial situation, so they only printed one side of the currency.
I thought that was interesting.
So a lot of people use the other side as notes, like grocery lists.
Yeah, so some people do this on the back of checks nowadays. They'll put notes to themselves.
But yeah, so during this is never mind to the listener, we figured it out. Congress approved the first of 3 legal tender acts.
Okay, there we go.
Legal tender acts in 1862, and this authorized the issuance of $450 million in paper currency to fund the war, and just get to reboot everything. These notes, and this is a pretty famous note, the greenbacks. I'm sure the listener has heard of them, and they've got the name from its famous iconic greenback.
Yeah, and it talked about the notes being purposely intricate so that it'd be harder for people to forge.
Oh, and Ethan, you shouldn't have brought that up. That's a whole different conversation.
That is true.
Oh my gosh, you could go into hours on how intricate the United States currency is. It's probably one of the most intricate in the world. It's extremely hard to counterfeit because look at the detail, and the $2 bill is a little bit different, but especially have you seen like the different just the patterns and textures of it, and
in the documentary in the book they use a certain word, I don't remember what it was, but it's the style of printing, which raises the texture and gives the bills a certain texture on when filling it. And I thought that was interesting. Just imagine how difficult it is to counterfeit that.
And which 2 materials is it made with? I forget.
I'm not sure.
But I know it's really hard to produce.
And some bigger bills will have like the codes, like the $100 bill. You can hold it up towards the light and has that code down the middle. Or, I don't know if it's a code, but
yeah.
But
yeah, and they got them more. Look at that pattern right there.
Yeah.
So you can't just go and print them off, but
as much as everyone wishes they could.
But yeah, and at this time, bills there's no standard size for bills either. A lot of bills were really big, so they weren't standardized.
It talks about this later too. The $2 bill used to be bigger than it is now. It was larger, but they had to shrink it just because of how much it cost to print each bill.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
But as we're moving on here, the first person to be on the $2 bill was Alexander Hamilton, who served as the Secretary of Treasury from 1789 to 1795. So most people don't associate Hamilton with the $2 bill, of course.
George Washington was on the $2 bill too. That's another topic. All the people that have been on
the $2 bill. But so George Washington was on the $2 bill?
Yeah, it mentions that in the documentary.
I must have missed that one. But most famously, most people associate the $2 bill with Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, because he's the person that's been on it in the most recent printings.
He first made his first appearance beginning in 1869. And this is one of the most famous American currencies, or not really famous, but among people who value currency, rainbow note. The rainbow note. I thought that was interesting. If you could talk about that a little bit, the color scheme of it. The silver certificates.
Yeah, so this is what I want to talk about.
Yes.
So, previously, before 1971, the United States was on what was called the gold standard. I don't want to say all because I don't know this for sure, but currency was backed by gold and silver, right? Hardware. Instead of faith in the United States to protect the country,
The credit for faith in creating United States government.
Yeah. we use gold, and the idea was, hey, if you have $2 bill and you turn this in, you could get $2 worth of gold back. And some people agree with coming off the gold standard, some people don't. I'm not an economist. I don't know what to think of it. And not to get off on a tangent, but people will cite coming off the gold standard as bad, and that's why they create stuff like cryptocurrency, because it serves a similar purpose. But yeah, to continue, this was especially prevalent during the Great Depression. Instead of bills, specifically for the $2 bill, instead of bills as currency, you could have deposits. The $2 bill would be like a silver deposit, and you could turn the $2 bill into a bank, and they were silver notes.
And the silver notes, I know you can't see it, but I encourage you honestly to look it up. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Because that's probably one of my favorite
They're intricate.
pieces of currency of all time. And just look at that. It's just really pretty.
But you could turn these $2 certificates, these silver certificates, into the bank, and you could get $2 worth of silver, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was super interesting. Because nowadays, well, you could go buy gold or silver with your $2 bills, but it's not the same. It's not backed by the gold and silver.
And it lists this as representative money. So
yeah, and I like the idea. The bill doesn't hold value. It's the representative for the value.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the bill does hold the value. If you destroy this $2 bill, well, that value's gone.
Yeah.
You can't get it back. But previously, if you destroyed a $2 bill, well, the representation of the value's gone, but the value still exists. That's my understanding of it. I'm not an economist, and if that's incorrect, I apologize, but that's my understanding.
And it says the silver certificates were issued through 1964.
Yeah.
A period of over 75 years.
This is well after the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And well before, too.
And another topic in this chapter is the national bank notes. And I'm not pretty well versed in this. I read it, but it's...
Yeah, this section's a bit hard to get through. It's really wordy at times, and the book's very well written, but it's a lot of information to digest.
This says the national bank notes were not backed by faith in government, nor were they backed by silver or gold. This is pretty interesting. These notes were backed by bonds that federally chartered banks deposited with the United States Treasury.
Yeah, so this kind of reminds me of certificates of deposits. You buy the certificate of deposit, $1,000 for 6 years, and it's 5% interest rate. After the 6 years are up, you get your $1,000 back plus a 5% interest. And I don't think it's exactly the same, but it reminds me a lot of it. It was evidence of a deposit. It wasn't currency. Like, it was evidence that you had this money. I think it goes back to the representation of money.
Yeah. And these $2 denominations were very sought after because of the horizontal 2 that dominates the front side.
Yeah.
They call this the lazy deuce, and it features a vignette of Sir Walter Raleigh showing corn and tobacco to the English. But yeah, I thought that, and there's a lot of, this book goes really into the actual layout of the $2 bill too, through the ages.
That's hard to represent for a podcast.
Yeah.
We all recommend and encourage you guys to buy this book and flip through it and read it yourselves. And I mentioned earlier that the book and the movie together were $22.22. The book's much cheaper if you want to buy it separately. You can find the documentary on YouTube for free.
And it's a nice book. It's not a cheap book by any means, but it is pretty cost efficient.
Yeah.
And then we get to the Federal Reserve banknotes. The World War I era, and so the first Federal Reserve note issued of the $2 bill featured the World War I era battleship. I forget the name of it. Do you?
It's mentioned, I think.
Let me see here. I'm not seeing it on here.
Anyways, it's a beautiful ship.
Yeah, the Federal Reserve Act, that was in 1913. That centralized
The banking system.
in the United States.
And I think it mentions in this chapter too, maybe the next few pages, the $50,000. The 50,000 notes, United States notes, they had to keep in circulation up until a certain point.
Let me see here. I'm not seeing them right here, but it does say
Might be in the document.
Yeah. There are 34 different $2 bill Federal Reserve Bank notes, different types. All told, there were over 68 million of these notes were printed during that time period, which is pretty neat.
That is neat.
And the next section is called red seal bills, and that was one of the most interesting parts of the bill.
So this was fairly important.
Yeah. You can go ahead, Ethan. You're more well versed in the red seal than I am.
So we mentioned these red seal bills. So the bills that were originally printed when the Federal Reserve was implemented were different than the bills we have nowadays. We still have a seal. We have this big 2 printed on the note, TWO. We have the serial number, that's similar. But some of the differences are, this one actually says United States Note 2. So this is one of the original notes that was printed after the Federal Reserve Act. It says United States Note, but it has a red seal on the left of the bill.
Yeah.
Where we have like an L or a D, it had this red seal. It's the Department of the Treasury seal. So after the Federal Reserve Act, it was printed in red on the left side of the bill. Nowadays, it's printed in green, and it's on the right side of the bill over this big TWO. And something that's mentioned a lot in the documentary is that this TWO used to be much bigger, but it was shrunk, and then the green seal was placed over it. And then, of course, we have the signatures, Secretary of the Treasury, and then Treasury of the United States. We have Washington, D.C., and then we have various numbers that represent certain things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the red seal. I mean, everybody just sees the green seal and they don't really think about it at all.
Yeah.
But it's not always been that way.
Yeah.
As I say, I mean, everybody knows who Thomas Jefferson is.
Yeah.
And most people know where he lived. He lived in Monticello.
And
if you ever get a chance to visit Monticello, it's beautiful. It's in Charlottesville, Virginia, or outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. It's on top of a mountain. Have you been before?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, it's amazing. But in Monticello, if you go, and Monticello means little mountain in Italian, because Thomas Jefferson he was a Renaissance man. He was a man of many passions.
Polyglot.
Say what?
He was a polyglot.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy. But he, as I said before, he's associated with the $2 bill, and Monticello will do anything to really
Keep his
further
memory
his
alive.
legacy, his memory alive. So if you go to Monticello and you go to the gift shop and you buy something and you need change, they will offer you $2 bills and change.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And do they stamp them there too? I'm not sure.
They might. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure about that.
We mentioned Monticello because Monticello used to be on the back of $2 bills, whereas now we have the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
They used to be Monticello bills. And that's pretty interesting.
And they said they think Thomas Jefferson. Did he have an ego?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
So they thought that he might have actually been offended about his placement on the $2 bill. They think he probably would have wanted to be on the 50 or the 100.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of ironic. He was a big opposer, a very vocal opposer of a national bank, essentially
Of a centralized
central bank. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, when a central bank is formed, democracy and liberty dies.
Well, he says is a greater threat to liberty. I mean, I don't think that's extreme.
Yeah.
They have different times, but this shows how kind of outdated this is too. He says it's greater threat to liberty than a standing army.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was interesting too. That Thomas Jefferson didn't believe in a standing U.S. Army,
and which is unthinkable because we have we have a huge military, not just army.
Yeah, and that's a hallmark of America, and Jefferson was the founder of America. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, so Jefferson, the $2 bill. If you go to Monticello and you want to make the trip,
pick up a $2 bill.
Pick up a $2 bill. Can make it more special.
Send us a photo. We'll
absolutely.
shout you out.
Yeah, DM us on Instagram.
Yeah.
And this next chapter is called The Demise of the $2 Bill.
Yeah,
So after the initial red seal of the $2 bill appeared in 1928, it would be another 25 years before another issue, before another series was issued. Of course, the Great Depression happened, and the frugality there meant that most people had no use for bills greater than $1. And you think about that, that's kind of...
It's hard. That's scary.
That's hard times.
Yeah.
So twos were not in high demand, and those that were found, as we said before, were mostly hoarded. And at this time, the transactions were kind of awkward, and people started getting this kind of superstitions that it was bad luck.
Yeah.
So ironically, the United States government continually pushed for the use of $2 bill. I thought this was interesting. In 1925, the government began placing $2 bills in every federal employee's paycheck, and you see this further in the book when it's talking about paying Navy sailors in $2 bills.
Yeah. And that's also mentioned later in a testimonial. Three veterans had signed a $2 bill in, I think it was Chicago.
Yeah.
And
well, it was a USS Chicago. They were in World War
Chicago.
II.
Yes, you're right. USS Chicago. And it made its way across the country, and this lady found it, and she was able to find the signature and find the person who had recognize one of the signatures and find one of the people who had signed it. She called them, and it was the same person. And they shipped it to him, and he had that $2 bill. Mm-hmm. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and actually that ship was pretty interesting history. It got sunk by the Japanese. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and in World War II, the U.S. government tried to pay the soldiers in $2 bills exclusively. Mm-hmm. And the next chapter goes more into Trumbull's Declaration of Independence.
So the art and reconfiguring people around in the photo.
Yeah.
There are several iterations, too, of the Declaration of Independence painting, and it talks about that, and that's not super relevant to the episode, but it is an interesting read.
It's an interesting read. It's also an interesting painting. For those of you you've seen the painting before, if you've seen the signing of the Declaration of Independence, you've seen the painting.
Yeah.
It's actually not historically accurate.
Yeah.
They showed it to, I think it was 1821 when they, or 1823 when they made it for the U.S. Capitol building. They made it in 1817, but I think it took a little while to complete. Mm-hmm. So they took it to Independence Hall to show John Adams, who was still alive. His son was President John Quincy Adams at the time, and he hated it. He says it was an abomination of American history. He said that's not how it happened at all. There was no one time when they were all in the room together.
I think the painting depicts the drafting.
Yeah, but it depicts the drafting, but the misconception is, and the way that it was marketed,
it was all signed like
that. It
that.
was the signing of it, and that's the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and that infuriated John Adams because they signed it throughout the summer. Mm-hmm. It wasn't. They dated it July 4, 1776, but people came in and out through the whole summer because they were busy.
Yeah,
they ran law firms, they had farms, so they couldn't all be there at one time, and it was a security issue too.
Yeah, having all those people in one place.
Yeah, so really now we're kind of up to modern day.
Yeah. Really,
you got the new release of the $2 bill in April 13th, 1976 to celebrate Thomas Jefferson's birthday. Mm-hmm. Over 400 million newly printed twos were slowly put into circulation.
Yeah, so I was talking about this earlier, people calling the Federal Reserve and asking, is this real? Can we spend it?
Yeah.
And talking about, you should spend it. The whole point of printing a bill is for people to spend it. Don't hoard it, because that defeats the point. We're just really increasing inflation at that point.
And but yeah, and it says, and this is this is a comment by Steve Sorrell, who worked at the Treasury Department at the time. Mm-hmm. He said to consumers, to citizens, and businesses, we said, yes, please use this. To banks, he says, because we're at the Treasury Department, we said you must use it. You must put it into change and you must accept it. And they all did. They all got on board to my recollection. They all got on board to my recollection. So yes, there was a strong statement. Mm-hmm. It was back. The $2 bill was back, and it was back to be used too. It wasn't back to be some collected item
to be stored.
So they said the first day they released it, how many thousands of phone calls the Treasury Department received.
I don't know if it ever gives a number, but it was a lot. Right?
Yeah, but people thought it was counterfeit. People thought, they were asked to know, I forget what they were asking. It was really like how much it was worth. And so people were really interested in it. There's a lot of confusion in the beginning, too.
Something it mentioned briefly, too, in the book, that it was cheaper to print $2 bills than it was $1 bills because you could print double the value in the same amount of bills, or in half the amount of bills.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool, too. So the first issues in the post office. The post office, they have a stamp. Mm-hmm. what date.
Yeah.
It said April 13th, 1976 on the
Yeah.
date. So thousands and thousands and thousands of people flooded the post office to get that
stamped
stamp.
the bills.
So the first day it was reissued, they got their bill stamped. So yeah, because they thought, it's the first release of it, especially, so they got it stamped.
On a special date, too.
A special day. People do that for other stuff, too.
Yeah.
People's birthdays.
I read a testimony, I don't know if in the book in the documentary, that a father gets $2 bills stamped on his children's birthday and gives it to them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was special.
And it says it's likely that many of the $2 bills stamped on April 13th, 1976 have been passed down. There might be still in circulation to this day, which would be, think about how cool that would be.
Finding one.
Yeah, $2 bills are interesting anyways, but finding a $2 bill that's stamped. Is it worth any more? No.
Probably not, no.
It's not, but...
Unless it's special.
And somebody might buy it more for just to have it.
Yeah. And it's important to note that maybe these aren't fiscally valuable. They're valuable to each person.
Yeah.
And that's what matters. Sure, if my grandfather had given me a $2 bill, it would be worth $2. But it would matter to me because he gave it to me.
Absolutely. But yeah, so personal stuff, and that's what the next chapter is called, is superstition. Mm-hmm. And we've already discussed some of this too, but
yeah, we won't spend too much time on it.
Not too much time, but the sliding deuce and the two, and some of the releases back in the 1800s. Mm-hmm. Deuce is just slang term word for the devil.
Yeah.
And any number associated with the Prince of Dark, it's likely associated with a curse.
Yeah.
So like
and
2.
Some people say that you can draw out like certain figures on the bills.
There's many.
And
conspiracy theories.
Sure, you can do that, but that's not.
And we won't get into some of the stuff too, but especially with the $1 bill.
Yeah.
There's hundreds
so
of different ways that.
And people say if you fold the corners of the $2 bill, you can make an owl, and the owl represents certain things, and it's just kind of silly.
It's kind of crazy, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Twins too has been said to be cursed.
Well, and that one's valid because twins
in pop culture, it's.
Yeah.
Widespread criticism.
Yeah, especially during like the Great Depression. If you have twins, well, that's double the amount of money that you have to spend.
Bad luck,
That can be very hard on a family.
And I thought this is, I don't know how much you want to go into this, but women of the evening. It was also, the $2 bill was associated with vice, too. Mm-hmm. In New York City, most ladies of the evening, as it says here, charged $2 bills for companionship. Mm-hmm. So they were seen as cursed and tainted and dirty, filthy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the opposite of what they're seen as today, which I thought was interesting.
At least to some people.
To some people. And said politicians too, if a woman was willing to sell companionship for just $2, surely anybody else would take the same amount to vote a certain way.
Yeah.
And talked about some of the political bribes of the $2 bill.
Supposedly. I don't recall there ever being any hard evidence that people would buy votes with $2 bills, but there's a superstition that they did.
It could happen. I thought this was also really interesting too.
Horse
racing. They said at the time, $2 bill was the base standard for getting into a horse
betting. Yeah.
For betting on horses. They said if a person came home with a stack of $2 bills, therefore, they had spent too much time at the track, and they said this could get a married man in trouble. Because they said if he saw a bunch of $2 bills, sometimes it was obvious where
you'd been.
They had been. In the next chapter, we'll skip over this, but it really just talks about the Illuminati and the Enlightenment era secret society at the $2 bill.
Better be careful. We might get a visit.
I should stop. But yeah, and this, we can't go through all this, but it talks about the specific, the owl's lard and everything. It's just really interesting. And the next section is how to remove a curse.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, tearing corners, kissing it.
It's in that your saliva. You got to moisten the bill to remove the curse from it. But yeah, I thought that's cool. And it talked about this too, how widespread almost the $2 bill is when you see a bunch of twos. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much you want to discuss this, but at certain types of clubs where paper currency is used, they don't like to use the ones because they're filthy and people can get sick from them. Mm-hmm. And they're just nasty, they're widely circulated. So at the club, when they were giving out change, when they were breaking 20s and stuff, instead of giving out ones, they gave out twos. And a lot of people don't really know what they were, or they thought, it's a $2 bill. So they thought it was like a weird $1 bill, an inconvenient $1 bill. So they wanted to get rid of it, so they just threw them out like ones. And the
payout was more.
the I don't know how to say that, the people who worked there really liked that because, one, the bills were really clean. They weren't dirty, and they felt safer handling them, and they made a lot more money. So they said if a person came out of a club with or a person used a bunch of $2 bills anywhere near that establishment,
it was obvious
where they had spent their evening. I thought that was really funny. But yeah, it's like about the usage of them. A lot of grandparents gave them to them.
And organizations.
Organizations.
There's some people who lobby for the Second Amendment with $2 bills because 2 represents the Second Amendment. And people pass out $2 bills with like gun right stuff written on it to try to lobby for protecting the Second Amendment. I don't know if lobby is the correct word, but promoting the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
So you pay with $2 bill and someone's asked, hey, why do you have a $2 bill? Well, I want to protect the Second Amendment. And the $2 bill represents the Second Amendment. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of groups use them, a lot of colleges. And we talked about Clemson earlier.
Yeah, Clemson gives a $2 bill to all their graduates. Yeah.
And they encourage the graduates in the future, and they have the red paw on it. It's kind of like a symbol of, completion.
Yeah, it's continuity kind of.
Yeah, but they also encourage they give a $2 bill with the Clemson paw on it, but they want their students to give back a regular $2 bill to show, to teach charity and stuff. It's very symbolic.
Say what you will about donating to a college, but it is symbolic.
It's very symbolic. A bunch of groups and organizations use a $2 bill. It talks about
certain vendors will use it to be memorable. If you go to a place and they give you a $2 bill back, you're probably going to remember the place.
Absolutely. And the next talks about stampers.
Yeah, so
there's a lot of organizations out there that do stamp currency. If you can talk, you're more versed in that than I am.
So this is something I really wanted to talk about. There's this website called Where's George, and you can look it up. And it was originally founded to track $1 bills, and you could stamp a $1 bill, enter the serial code on the website, and it would create an entry. You could put in your email address, and then you could just use the $1 bill somewhere. And if someone came across it and decided to go to that website, which is listed on the bill, and enter in that serial number again, you get a notification of where they were, not where they were, but the zip code. And they could enter in a fake zip code if they wanted, so there's no privacy concerns with this. But so I found one in the last summer, and it had originally been entered in Florida. And someone had decided to stamp the bill, put it into the system, and use it. Then the next time it was entered into the system was in Tennessee. So that was cool. So they entered in the serial number into the website, spent it, and then I came across it. I don't remember where I got this $1 bill, but I was looking through my cash one day, and I saw it. I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I entered in the serial number, I spent it, and then a few weeks later, I got a ping that it was used in Woodlawn.
Yeah.
Woodlawn has a different zip code of where I live. So Woodlawn, Virginia. So that's why another ping came up. So this person saw the $1 bill, decided to use it, decided to enter it, and far I know they kept it, or they went and spent it somewhere. Yeah. And each time that serial number is entered into the website, everyone who's previously entered the serial number will get a notification. Yeah. So if it ends up in Japan, we'll all get a notification that's in Japan.
And that's what they said. People who enter these, and how many millions of bills are listed on that website?
It's a lot.
It's like tens of millions of actual dollar bills that are listed.
It's not only $1 bills.
Yeah.
It's $2 bills, and they have this scoreboard. It's called Top Toms, and it's a list of people who have entered the most $2 bills, which is interesting. This person had entered I think it was 240.
Was it I think it was somebody featured in the book that listed 240,000.
Yeah, he was interviewed. 240,000 $2 bills. That's a lot of money. Can you imagine stamping 240,000 $2 bills and entering them into a website? That's pretty cool.
That's almost like a full-time job. I mean, that's a big commitment. But yeah, the stampers. I mean, there's with anything out there, there's going to be communities of people who are interested in it. And this guy right here, his name is Ben Cohen. He's one of the founders of Ben & Jerry's ice cream company.
Oh, yeah.
He's a co-founder of Ben & Jerry's. He created a website called the Stampede. And that's what he wanted to prove the legality of stamping currency. and this is what he talks about, and I'm going to read the statement right here. It says, if you read the actual regulations, they state that you can't cut the money, you can't punch holes in it, you can't glue it, you can't make it so that it's no longer obviously money or change the denomination, and you can't advertise a business.
So that's what
you
we
just
talked about
can't burn
earlier.
it or shred or otherwise destroy currency,
Yeah.
rendering it unfit for circulation.
Yeah, so
But you can stamp it.
yeah, and you'll see sometimes cash-deals are like mark bills. I don't know why they did that, but that's not defacing it.
Yeah, and this goes into Where's George? And
Yeah, we talked about Where's
yeah,
George.
and it says this one guy, Fred Schechter, is one of the
Yeah.
users. He's ranked number 2, which I thought that was number 2. I wonder what number 1 is.
I think that was the $240,000.
Okay, yeah, the top Tom with over. Yeah, here's is Ryan Two Bills. That's his username.
Yeah.
Top Tom with over 340,000
Oh,
$2 bills.
340.
Not 340,000 $1 and $2 bills.
It's
340,000 just
$2
$2 bills, which is
Yeah.
extremely impressive. He said that. Now this other guy, Frank Schechter, he's ranked number 2 with 200,000 $2 bills entered. He said, I've had $2 bills that have traveled from Florida to California. Sometimes I go to Afghanistan with servicemen, and I've gotten hits in Korea, all over the place.
Yeah.
And it says there's a big network of form of like-minded people out there that love the currency. But you may never make it to the top Tom list. They say you need a minimum of 2,000 bills
And that's a
entered
lot.
to even qualify of getting in.
It's kind of hard to think about it, but if you put in a number, like monetary value, that's $4,000 worth of $2 bills.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I don't think I'll ever come across that many $2 bills in my lifetime. That makes the 340,000 figure even more impressive. That's $680,000 that he's handled.
That's an obsession.
It is an obsession.
I mean, he really must be into it.
He must be into it.
And then it talks about collectible items. We've went over this. And this kind of gets kind of in the weeds here a little bit, talking about the stars and serial numbers. If I'm going to the stars a little bit.
Yeah, so bills are printed in mass, right, on this belt, but occasionally there's an error. So all the bills are inspected, and if someone sees that there's an error on a bill, they can take it out and replace it. And because of a law that states you cannot print the same serial number twice, they'll put a star on the bill. So it's technically a different serial number, which I think is interesting. And if you come across a bill that was a star, that means it's a replacement bill. That's just super unique, and those bills can be worth more too.
Yeah, and it talks here about error notes too.
Yeah.
Double printed notes that
Yeah.
could be worth more. Paper notes are printed backwards. I'm not really sure how that happens on a big, massive print press.
Yeah.
How can one get messed up?
Maybe if one gets like loose, maybe.
Yeah. I'm not sure, because you think if one got messed up, it would kind of mess up.
And maybe it does.
Who
And
knows?
they
Maybe
just-
that's how it's just so widely circulated that, if
hard to
100 were
detect.
messed up, well, there's millions that were printed.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that,
Yeah.
And this is this is probably my favorite part of the book. We're getting towards the end of the book here, so I get into more the personal side of it too. This guy name is Richard Jurek, and he's born in Chicago, and he has an obsession with outer space, autographs, and $2 bills. So he's a man of many tastes, and he knows what he likes. And he said, I sent on a personal mission to track down. He wanted to combine all 3 of his hobbies into one. So he said, I set out on a personal mission to track down every $2 bill flown into space and acquire them for my collection. And he's gotten a bunch of these $2 bills signed by actual astronauts.
Yeah.
And this is
One of the bills had been in space.
in space.
too.
One of these bills had been on the moon. And so pretty much every, he said, through public auction, astronaut estates, and other methods, Jurek has secured nearly a dozen deuces that have been in space, which is deuces are another slang term for the $2 bill. It said each autographed by one or more astronauts and notarized as having flown on a given Apollo, Gemini, or Mercury mission.
Yeah.
Some have orbited the Earth, some have been in lunar orbit, and one in particular has landed on the surface of the moon. And this is the one I think is flown on the Friendship 7 in February 1962. And it was signed with a good luck wish and hidden on board by the crew, pilots John Glenn and John Carpenter. And that wasn't on the moon. That was
Scott Carpenter.
Scott Carpenter. That was the John Glenn. Okay. This was the one that was on the moon right here. Yeah. And John, you can get a whole other discussion about John Glenn and all them on the moon mission. We won't go into space today because that could probably
That could be another topic talk about.
another topic. Absolutely. And this is one that I was questioning the legality on.
Yeah.
Because this bill was from the Gemini 5 mission in 1965, and the bill was signed by astronauts Gordon Cooper and Charles Conrad. and then they cut the bills in half.
Yeah. And
Which
is technically not legal, but
what are they going to do? Throw the
astronauts in jail?
astronauts in jail? I don't think so. But I think they gave one half the bill, said here's $1, and they took $1 they said it wasn't really.
Yeah.
But they gave one half the bill on the ground, they took the other one half into space with them, and eventually Jurek collected this. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I thought that was neat.
Oh yeah, and then some people do art on the $2 bills.
I didn't really.
I don't know how legal this. Well, actually, no. It does mention that they're perfectly legal
because it doesn't
change the.
But I'm not sure. I mean, if you're going to buy this, you probably won't spend it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure how many people would take that.
Yeah.
Out in town.
Yeah.
Probably nobody. When it has like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, or it has.
And it says
Marilyn
like
Monroe,
these bills cost $20. Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't want to spend something that costs $20 for only $2 worth of value.
I mean, how much other stuff you spend on that's worth far less?
Well, I think it'd be cool to buy it.
As a collectible item,
spending
you would want to spend it unless you were maybe doing one of those stamp things to see how far it traveled.
Yeah, that's true.
Or you could put I don't know, somewhere. I mean, if people scan it and they can email you where they found it. But yeah. And we might have to start doing that too. Yeah. Maybe we might have to put a $2 bill in.
Maybe so this would be. I don't think this would be advertised, but we could put a form on our website where people can enter. That'd be interesting. I don't know how difficult that would be to implement.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can do some experience around town too, like we discussed. Yeah. And then it goes into the Canadian too, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Talks about Queen on it.
They haven't had a $2 bill in existence since 1996. Mm-hmm. It was called. They had two birds on the back, called the Birds of Canada, and it was a really neat color too, I thought. After that, they don't have them anymore, but they had a unique coin, a $2 coin called the toonie, and the Canadian $2. I thought that the Canadian toonie. I thought that was
pretty,
really interesting. It's really pretty. Originally they put Queen Elizabeth on it in the mid 1950s.
Mm-hmm. They had to recall those bills.
They had to recall them because people made such a fuss. But I couldn't find the.
Yeah, people said you could see
the devil smiling in one of the curls on her hair.
Yeah,
I couldn't see it. I looked for like 20 minutes.
I couldn't see it either,
and I couldn't find it.
It's superstitious.
Yeah, but they caused so much of a fuss.
They had to recall.
They had to actually recall the currency, which is insane. Or no, not recall, but redesign it and reissue it.
Yeah.
And then the final part of the book is my favorite. It's the stories. Mm-hmm. Many will admit that they received their first $2 bill from a family member. That's me.
Yeah.
That's where I first learned about it. And when I first figured it out, when I was like 6 or 7 or 8, I was like, wow, that was really cool. Yeah. I was affected by it too. But I think it's really cool when people figure out first time when they're an adult. Mm-hmm. Is it a little bit kind of not sad, but kind of people should know this. Yeah. But it's cool to hear people's stories, their personal testimonies. And this is probably the most personal story out of the whole book. If you can read that name right there.
This one?
Yeah.
Shars.
The Shars. I don't want to butcher it, but Murda Shar. So let's go back here. The day started September 11th, 2001, and that should tell you what the story is going to be about. So it started as a typical morning for Murda Shar. It wasn't until she arrived at work, however, that her day in her life changed dramatically. Her husband, Robert, worked at an insurance brokerage company on the 92nd floor of the South Tower of the World Trade Center. The North Tower was hit by an American Airlines flight hijacked by terrorists. Robert called Martin to say he'd be okay, and saying, I love you, and that was the last time they talked. Mm-hmm. Soon after, the United Airlines flight, also hijacked by terrorists, crashed in the South Tower, where it managed to collapse, and it killed Robert, her husband. She knew that she would never see Robert again. Yeah. The Garces, so they spent many years together, married. They met at an insurance seminar, and they said it was meant to be a hit right off the bat because they were married before, and they're just really connected. And this is really kind of romantic in a sense, but it's odd, but it's funny. Yeah. Not funny, but it's really unique. On the night Robert proposed, instead of giving Marta a ring, he instead produced two $2 bills. Yeah. Which I thought was touching. Yeah. I mean, and she said she thought it was unusual, but she said it was a symbol of love because it was an opportunity to have a second chance at life together. I thought about the number 2.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So the $2 bill for them represented that love. He told me that we had to have a $2 bill in our pockets all the time. So he kept one in his pocket and she kept one in her pocket. And this is really interesting. He also said that if they were ever to lose each other, we will find each other by the $2 bills. And it says Robert's words proved to be prophetic. Thousands of personal belongings in a variety of conditions were pulled from the records of the World Trade Center over the next several years. A lot of times families use this stuff to identify their loved ones because there was nothing left.
Yeah.
But Marta received a call saying that Robert's wallet and wedding ring had been found. So she went out to the police station in Manhattan to receive the items. So they had his ID and his library card and everything. And then they actually found
$2 bill.
No, they found the ring. She said
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She said she was touched by that, but in his wallet they found the $2 bill. She said my heart went boom. It was at that moment that a lot of different types of emotions started happening. She said she pulled out the bill and held it up. She said, "Look," she said, "I found him." That's what to her that was closure. And she said that's what the wedding ring. Marta hardly looked at it. She said it was a $2 bill that provided the most powerful connection between her and her husband. So she later donated the $2 bill to the 9/11 Museum in New York City. Yeah. She said, my $2 bill is a love story, and it makes me feel that I've done something for Rob and that for the people who perished that day. So for that, she said all kinds of things are negative in the world, but we need more love. If a $2 bill can make that change, then why not donate it? She said, we can take a $2 bill and talk about a story of a man and a woman, and when that love is that strong, you can bind and bond with people with that love. She said the $2 bill brought us together, which is touching. A $2 bill, who would have thought?
Yeah.
So, that's a very personal story, and it's sad, yes, but it's really
I'm happy that
touching.
It brought some closure to her.
Absolutely.
And I think it was a few years afterwards, too.
Yeah, they knew, of course, that he had passed away, but
they did
finding certain items. So
it
getting it sorted out, because there was so much stuff there.
It's difficult.
Yeah. And let's talk about the money letters here. She got her first $2 bills in high school. This another lady, Jackie Cummings Koski.
Yeah.
She thought she got her first $2 bill in high school, and she kind of collected them. And I think every time she got a paycheck, didn't she get a $2 bill and keep it and save it with her? And after a few years, she realized she had saved over $3,600 worth of $2 bills. So she grew up in poverty in Aiken, South Carolina, and so she ended up having her own teenage daughter, and to teach them about money, she used the $2 bill as a way to teach her daughter. She said the most impactful way I found to do that was write it down, and she turned it into a book. It's called She's called Money Letters to My Daughter, and the 2 is with a 2 for a $2 bill. And she ended up going around and making it like a big, educational experience at school. So she had workshops, presentations. She went to schools and showed people $2 bills. And a lot of these kids never even realized that we had a $2 bill until she went and talked to them about it.
And I think it mentions this. She would give $2 bills out at the end of her workshops.
And this is one of the pictures of her at a workshop. And it says, the fact that I'm willing to give away my own very special $2 bills to a complete stranger usually gets their attention. But in my heart, every student is just as special and unique as a $2 bill. Yeah. And it's just a picture of her with a class, with a group of students, and they're all holding $2 bills. And that was really the book. And there's a page that's talking about error notes and stuff you can go and look at afterwards. And this talks about the author of the book, and different people that were involved in the project. The book and the documentary are they're really connected. They're not. There's a lot. I think the documentary was created first, and then this was created.
I'm not sure.
So I thought this is very in-depth. I think the documentary was really in-depth too. Probably more in the way of personal stories and stuff. But I highly recommend it. Something you normally wouldn't give any mind to. We can talk and have an hour and a half conversation about a $2 bill. It was interesting.
That is interesting. And something that the website mentions briefly, and I'm not sure how true this is, the version of the documentary on YouTube is slightly different than the version on the DVD. I haven't had a chance to watch the DVD version yet. I've only watched the version on YouTube. But that's something that the listener might want to look into.
Is there any special features on that DVD?
It says here on the website, it says the movie is available on Amazon as well through a DVD purchase on the site. A slightly modified version of the film is available for free on our YouTube channel. So that makes it sound like maybe there's a more complete version through the DVD.
On the DVD, I don't assume that would be.
Yeah. But the YouTube version was still amazing.
It's an hour and 40 minutes of solid $2 bill
conversation.
Yeah. Not just conversation, but pretty neat. I mean, it was very solid.
Yeah, it was.
It was neatly made. They also have you mentioned their YouTube channel.
Yeah, they have a lot of very
Videos, not just the documentaries. They did documentaries on their YouTube channel, but they have other interesting shorter videos, like 10, 15-minute videos about the $2 bill.
Little fun facts, like $2 bills have been in outer space and on the moon. Clip from the $2 bill documentary.
And the actual channel is called the $2 bill documentary. If you can go just a hair.
And then it says, there's this video of someone trying $2 bills on a self-checkout machine. And it's stuff like this.
And they have a lot of the 7 benefits of using a $2 bill.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Women on the $2 bill.
Yeah.
Was it Harriet Tubman they were thinking about putting on the $2 bill?
I'm not sure. Oh, and
because there's been talk about doing that here recently.
Here's this Taco Bell clip that we talked about earlier. Of course, it wasn't the original footage, but it was kind of like role play, I guess.
And here you can actually find videos of people actually giving $2 bills out for the first time.
To a drive-thru.
To drive-thrus.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if they're going to do that, and we encourage all of you to go out there and to go out and to get into $2 bills too, get into the lure of it, pass them out and use them too. I mean, I have a bunch of $2 bills at the house. I keep and because of my grandparents gave them to me and stuff like that. But
I'm thinking about just going and taking $100 bills to the bank and saying,
cashing
"Hey,
it.
give me some $2 bills."
Yeah, and going out of town and go with you and try to maybe buy a whole dinner with $2 bills or something.
Yeah.
Something funny.
I'd like to try that. I think we should do that one day and record the reactions.
Reactions, absolutely. But as we're wrapping up here, we can't really do a meaning of life for the $2 bill. But I think that if there was a meaning of life for the $2 bill, it would be, don't be afraid to be unique.
Yeah. Don't take it too seriously.
Don't take it too seriously. But yeah, and we would love to have Mr. John Bennardo on the podcast to talk to. We're going to try to reach out to him because if he's interesting enough to talk about $2 bills to make this whole 2-year documentary and write a book on, we'd love to sit down and talk to you.
I'm thinking he might, because when I originally ordered the book and the documentary, I got a handwritten note from him,
really,
stating that there was a problem with shipping for the book, I think, and that he ordered it from like a third party to have it sent to me because he was out of stock on hand.
That's really awesome.
It was handwritten. I thought that was pretty touching. I'm not sure I still have the note, but that was pretty cool, and I think someone who cares enough to do that would probably be willing to do an interview.
To talk to, yeah. And I'm not really, me and you are not really well versed in currency. I forget the actual term for people who is it numinous? Numinous?
I don't know.
Not numinous.
Numismatics.
Numismatics, yeah.
Numismatics.
We're not really
into numismatics.
And numismatics well versed, but it is something that we could get into. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and we could do some episodes on like silver dollars, right? Or Sacagawea dollars.
Have people come in and talk about it.
Yeah,
but
and I'm sure like there was a comic show at the VFW a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
I'm sure they had currency there too.
They do.
Yeah,
we could the flea market. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Because during the Labor Day flea market coming up, or even the Memorial Day flea market locally, they're a very big deal.
Mm-hmm. We could interview some people there.
There's so much money down there, currency or pneumatics. There's so much interesting types of currency that people sell down there that we could go on and talk to them about it. But yeah, as we're wrapping up here, we'd just like to say thank you to the audience. I know this episode's been a little bit different, but we had a great time talking about the $2 bill. It's something that it kind of mixes it up a little bit. I mean, we love to do interviews. That's our main focus is. But it is interesting to take a deep dive into something different every once in a while and to get out of our comfort zone. Because I'll be honest with you, I mean, I was a little bit nervous about talking about the $2 bill today because
I was too. I was worried that we wouldn't be able to talk about it for just like maybe 20 minutes, but clearly we have 80 minutes.
Absolutely.
We're doing good. So,
but yeah, just thank you to the listener for being patient with us, and I hope you learned a little bit something about the $2 bill today.
Yeah, and I invite the listener to send us photos of your $2 bills. Send us any stories that you have. We'd love to share them.
Absolutely.
With the word, and
Alrighty. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Watson.
And I'm Ethan Edwards.
And this is the Ridge Podcast.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Instagram, and as well as your favorite podcasting app. Our email is theridgepodcast@gmail.com, and our website is theridgepodcast.com.
If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you.